I'll show you guys an article that was published just recently on how Israel is going into third gear to pump out propaganda, pro-Israel propaganda, into the internet spaces. I'll show you guys this article. I read this article for this video, and it just shows you the depths into which Israel is going to try to spread pro-Israel propaganda. They are really, really desperate. So here's the article. It says here, AI Hasbara. Israel pours millions into U.S. influence efforts, targeting evangelicals in churches and ChatGPT. Why are they pouring in so much money if they're winning? Ask yourself that question. Why is Israel pouring so much money if they're winning? This is not the behavior of a winning faction. If I am a member of the winning faction, guess what? All I have to do is get in front of a 720 or a 1080 HD camera with a simple microphone, do a video, upload the video, and I'm done. That's all I have to do. Because the winning faction doesn't need a desperate amount of money to energize itself. It doesn't. So basically, in the earlier part of the article, it's talking about how Israel is getting desperate. They see that popularity for Israel is declining immensely. And let's just take a look at this chart real quick. So look at this chart. Percentage of Americans with a negative view of Israel. Young Democrats, 62% of young Democrats in 2022 had a negative view of Israel. And that has skyrocketed to 71% of young Democrats. Then you look at young Republicans. In 2022, 35% of young Republicans had a negative view towards Israel. That's why Shapiro was so popular in 2015, 16, 17. Because the young Republicans were still very pro-Israel. They didn't need to worry about the youth. They were banking on Charlie Kirk. And even Charlie Kirk began to turn against Israel, and he was killed. And then what happened? Everyone started blaming Israel. That's how bad it is for Israel. And then you fast forward to to the year 2025. Now it's 50% of young Republicans that are negative towards Israel. 50% of the Republican youth. And this is of March of this year. I would argue that it's probably more than 50% now, because this is of March of this year. And I can almost guarantee you it's a lot higher now. It's a lot higher than 50%. And then you look at the general American population, 42% of the general American public in 2022 had a negative view towards Israel, and that went to 53% in March of 2025. We are seeing the beginning of the end. Now, let's go read some excerpts of this article just to show you how desperate the Israeli propaganda department is. So it says here that previous Haaretz investigations have shown how advertising intelligence firms use tools that allow operators to draw a digital polygon on a map, extract identifiers of those who were physically present there, and continue targeting them online. A practice that poses a severe threat to privacy. The campaign would use such tools to identify, tag, and target potential Christian audiences with messages from Israel's foreign ministry. So they're going to go after evangelical Christians. The Israeli government has signed contracts worth millions of dollars in recent months to rehabilitate Israel's standing in American public opinion, both online and offline. Amid a sharp drop in support from the conservative right, Israel has hired firms to conduct not just Hasbara, public diplomacy campaigns, but also campaigns targeting millions of Christian churchgoers bot networks to amplify pro-Israel messages online, and efforts to influence both search results and the responses given by popular AI services like ChatGPT. So they want to manipulate the search results, and they want to target evangelical Christians. Why? Guys, remember the Great War between the Cruzite faction and the Tuckerite faction. Remember the infamous interview between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. And I talked about it not too long after it happened. Tucker Carlson said, okay, why are you so pro-Israel? And Cruz said, well, Tucker, it says right there in the Bible that all those who bless Israel will be blessed, and all those who curse Israel will be cursed. And Tucker said, with that sort of, I don't know, he does this sort of look where he tries to act like he's dumb and that he doesn't understand what you're saying, but he 100% understands what you're saying, but he's just trying to act dumb to make the audience think, what is this other person talking about? Tucker Carlson doesn't really understand because what the other person is saying sounds so ridiculous. And it's just it's an effective way of debate, really, what Tucker Carlson does. But Tucker Carlson has this sort of confused, perplexed look on his face, and he says to Cruz, he says, and so the Bible says that we have to, bless the government of Israel? What? Bless the government of Israel? We have to bless the government of Israel. So that's, by Israel, it means the modern day state of Israel. Is that what it's saying? And Ted Cruz was visibly agitated by this way of questioning, and he said, well, it's Israel, Tucker. It says Israel. Yeah, but that means the government of Israel. What do we mean by Israel, Ted? Is it the government of Israel? Is it the Israeli people? Is it the citizens? Is it the modern day state of Israel? Which one is it, Ted? And Cruz is like, well, it says Israel in there, damn it. It's Israel. And the whole world saw that and said, wow, the way that Tucker presents it, it really does sound ridiculous. I mean, just because it says Israel doesn't mean that automatically is talking about the actual Likud party and the prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu, and the current day state of Israel. Just because it says Israel doesn't mean that we have to bless this modern day national creation. So this debate between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, it sparked a national and really an international conversation on Christian Zionism, which meant that conversation was a threat to the pro-Israel Christian Zionist position, the position of Pastor Jack Hibbs, the position of Dr. Michael Brown, the position of Jonathan Cahn, the position of Ted Cruz, the position of all of these pro-Christian or pro-Israel pastors, people like Mark Diskrol, etc. That called into question this entire Christian Zionist narrative. So by that narrative being called into question, and by that narrative being really expressed against, Israel's geopolitical position in the world was threatened, because the pro-Israel policy of the United States is greatly dependent on the pro-Israel Christian Zionists. Once that goes away, or once that gets heavily reduced, Israel is in trouble, especially when it comes to its political relationship with the United States, because that would mean less Americans being pro-Israel. That would mean Israel losing its biggest supporting bloc, and that would mean the political landscape altering even more against Israel's favor. Not for Israel's favor, but against Israel's favor. Because then conservative/Republican politicians would have to think twice before expressing support for Israel. Because that would mean evangelicals and other American Christians coming forth and saying, what are you talking about? Don't support Israel. Don't give me that pro-Israel line. We don't want to hear it. We're not going to vote for you if you're pro-Israel. We're not going to vote for you if you're getting money from pro-Israel groups or from AIPAC, et cetera, et cetera. And so that would change how politicians act when it comes to Israel, how politicians talk, how they dialogue in regards to Israel. Now, remember what I said earlier about public opinion carving out the landscape. Because you have a lot of people who come along and they say, oh, America's never going to abandon Israel. America's never going to drop Israel because America has always supported Israel. And public opinion doesn't matter. That is an inadequate perspective. That is an inept perspective. And the reason why I say it's inadequate is because your opinion is based on a history wherein Israel enjoyed overwhelming support from the American populace and especially from American Christians. So yes, America has been pro-Israel for decades, going all the way back to the 1960s, when you had the 6 Days War and American Christians thought that Bible prophecy was being fulfilled after Israel defeated multiple Arab armies at once with America's help. And America supported Israel in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, in the 2010s. But you're basing your perspective on the fact that America was pro-Israel for decades. But again, that was because the American people were pro-Israel. We have not seen this level of antagonism towards Israel in the American population ever. We've never seen it. We have never seen it since the beginning of the formation of the State of Israel. We've never seen it. And what's happening in America is we are returning back to the 20th century. Because if you go back to 20th century, mid-20th century America, before the State of Israel was even created, the American population during World War II and before World War II had what we would deem anti-Semitic views. Not every American was this way, and I'm not saying that I support these views. I'm just making an observation of history. Before World War II, the American populace had, generally speaking, what we would deem as anti-Semitic views. Then World War II happened. Americans still had anti-Semitic views during World War II. We know this for a fact because there was a ship, I think it was called the USS, or it was called the SS St. Louis, and it was a ship filled with Jewish refugees who were trying to escape the Nazi death camps. That ship came to North America, and both the Canadian and the American people said no to accepting those Jewish refugees. They did not want those Jewish refugees in America. And what they were saying in those days was, if you allow Jewish refugees into the United States, they will corrupt American society. This is what they were saying. I'm not saying they were right. I'm not saying that that was correct. In fact, I think it was immoral to reject those people because those people ended up being murdered by the Nazis. I'm giving an observation of history. This is what happened in the history. After World War II, Americans began to change their views on the Jewish people because of the Holocaust. They saw the terrors of Nazism, they saw the horrors of Nazism, and they said, we don't want that to repeat. Let's not have those types of views. And so the American population began to change dramatically. In the 1960s, the American people became very pro-Israel because of the 1967 war, or better known as the 6 Days War. The Israeli military defeated multiple Arab armies, Egypt and Jordan, and this was seen as a fulfillment of Bible prophecy because Israel was surrounded, and then Israel won, and so people said, wow, this is the Bible coming to life. And so the American people became even more pro-Israel, and really the phenomenon of Americans being pro-Israel really, really sparked substantially as a result of the 1967 war. So we have not seen this level of antagonism towards Israel since that point, is what I'm trying to say. So you can't base your prediction based on decades of history. Because in those decades, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, 2010s, America was pro-Israel, yes, but that's because the American people were pro-Israel. The opinion of the American people towards Israel right now is nothing like what was the opinion of the American people towards Israel in the 80s and the 90s. So we are entering a new world in the sense that we are returning to the views of the mid-20th century. That's what's happening. That's what we are returning to. So Israel sees what's happening, and Israel is terrified. Because for decades, they've been used to all these American Christians supporting Israel, but now that's declining. And when that declines to the point where the majority of American Christians are not going to support Israel, that would mean Israel losing the ideological bloc that has supported it the most. That would mean Israel losing its biggest supporters. And that would be horrendous for Israel, geopolitically speaking, because then, like I said, American politicians are really going to start thinking twice before supporting Israel. Mamdani winning the election proves that you don't need to be pro-Israel to win an election now. You don't. When Mamdani was running, and he was debating all these sycophants who were running against him, Cuomo, whatever, there is a video that you can see. I'm sure you guys have all seen it already, but it's a quite telling video, and it really does bespeak the political atmosphere that we are currently in. But there's a video that you can watch, and you see Mamdani, you see Cuomo, you see all these other politicians there, and they're all debating each other. And they're all asked the same question. If you become mayor of New York City, which country would you visit? Cuomo says, I would visit Israel. The other guy says Israel. The other person says Israel. One woman says Israel. Israel, 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 Israel. As if all of these politicians just organically and naturally desired to go to the Holy Land, and it was all just coincidental that all these politicians wanted to go to Israel. They asked Mamdani, which country would you go to? He said, I would stay here in New York City because that would be my job as mayor of New York City. Going to Israel is not relevant to being the mayor of New York City. What does going to Israel have to do with New York City? Nothing. So I would just stay here in New York, and I would take care of New Yorkers. And if the Jewish community in New York wants to talk to me about their concerns, I would be happy to talk with them and help them deal with their issues. Very smart answer. Very advantageous and very effective answer. Smart answer from Mamdani. And people saw that and they said, wow, this guy's real. He's sincere. He's not fake like Cuomo. He's not fake like the other guys. All of them saying collectively the same thing like a bunch of parrots, like a bunch of sycophants glazing Israel. This guy is real. And I'm not saying this was the number one reason why he won, but that gave an appeal to Mamdani where people saw him as being authentic and not being just a shill for Israel. And so now it's popular to be anti-Israel. It's popular for politicians to be anti-Israel. It's popular for politicians to be critical of Israel. You see this Valentina Gomez woman. She is a prostitute for Israel. She, and I mean that figuratively, not literally, but she was critical of AIPAC initially, and then, well, she wasn't getting enough donations, I guess, so she began to become a sycophant for Israel. And people see right through it. And you have a bunch of pro-Israel people who love her, but the bottom line is most people do not respect Valentina Gomez because they see her as just a person who's selling herself for Israel, and that's it. Mamdani comes along, and he says, I'm against Israel. Free Palestine. I'm pro-Palestine. I'm not going to go to Israel. I don't give a shit about Israel. And that makes him appealing. So you already see this in the Democrat faction. Why? Because the Democrat Party has always been more critical of Israel than the Republican Party. And now the overwhelming majority of Democrats are anti-Israel. You are starting to see this slowly happening in the Republican faction. It's already happening overwhelmingly in the political discourse of the Republican world. Hence why you see Tucker Carlson being very popular, people like Dave Smith, etc., being very popular, Nick Fuentes being very popular. But you're going to start to see this being translated and converging into the political world of the Republican faction, not just the political discourse, but the actual world of political elections in the Republican faction. And you're going to start seeing a lot more Republican politicians coming along saying, I'm against Israel, I'm against Israel. Marjorie Taylor Greene has sort of jump-started this trend in the Republican world, but you're going to start seeing a lot more of it. And I am simply documenting the decline of the American-Israeli alliance in real time. That's what I'm documenting. People are going to say, no, America's still pro-Israel. Yeah, right now. Right now. But we are starting to see the alliance to crumble. And we're starting to see holes forming on the American-Israeli alliance. And people can say, no, America will never abandon Israel. Based on what? Based on the prior decades when the overwhelming majority of the American people support Israel? Well, you can't really make a prediction based off of that because that has changed dramatically. So now we have to expect the political landscape when it comes to Israel to alter and to shift significantly in American political discourse. So I'll continue to read. I will continue to read from this article. So it says here, the Israeli government has signed contracts worth millions of dollars in recent months. Okay, I've already read this. Among the experts recruited is a former campaign manager for Donald Trump, and many of the other firms are linked to the Republican Party or evangelical communities, indicating that Israel is focusing massive efforts on communities once considered automatically pro-Israel. Focus on those words. Focus on those words. Once considered automatically pro-Israel. So the evangelicals were once considered automatically pro-Israel, which means that is not the case. That is no longer the case. Among the campaign's goals is fighting anti-Semitism, which has risen alongside the decline in support for Israel. Together, these campaigns signal a new phase in Israel's post-war public diplomacy strategy and a shift in the way it uses agents, both AI and human influencers, for Hasbara abroad. American firms representing foreign governments must... Now get this. This is really giving it all away here. American firms representing foreign governments must register with the U.S. Department of Justice under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Documents filed over the past 2 months show that the government of Israel, through the Foreign Ministry, the Tourism Ministry, and the Government Advertisement Agency, signed multiple contracts in the United States to promote Israel's interests. So, expect to see a wave of pro-Israel stuff coming out of American evangelical Christians. Expect to see a wave of pro-Israel propaganda coming out of the American Christian pro-Israel internet world. When you see it, just understand where it comes from. You see this right here? I'll read to you guys this again. The Israeli government has signed contracts worth millions of dollars. So you're going to start seeing a whole wave of pastors and other evangelical Christians on the internet saying, we have to support Israel. It's in the Bible, guys. It's in the Bible. When you see that, understand where that comes from. Right here. Israel signing contracts worth millions of dollars to target American Christians with pro-Israel Christian propaganda to get them to support Israel. Right here. It's all designed. It's all astroturfed. It's all by design. And thankfully, for articles like this, we can know about this stuff. Payments are routed through Havas Media Germany GmbH, a subsidiary of the international advertising and public relations giant Havas. In practice, Havas serves as an intermediary, executing contracts with U.S. firms on Israel's behalf. Ooh, now interestingly enough, every time you say, hey, this person's paid by Israel, what do they always say as a response? They say, I haven't gotten a cent from Israel. Where is this money? I wish I can get this money. I wish Israel was paying me. Where is this money from Israel? I need this money. Where is the money? I haven't gotten a dime. You have that, what's her name, Emily Austin woman. She was confronted by Anna Kasparian, and Anna basically said, hey, you're paid by Israel. And Emily said, I haven't gotten a dime from Israel. Not a single dime from Netanyahu. And she was told right there, hey, listen, we're not stupid about how this stuff works. We know that the way it works is not that you get money from the state of Israel. You don't get a check in the mail that says, oh, paid by the Israeli government. Money from the Israeli government. Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, guys. That's not how it works. The way it works is you get paid by a third party who is a conduit of the Israeli government. That's how it works. You don't get paid directly from Jerusalem. You get paid by a billionaire or a millionaire funder who's a Zionist, who is paying you at the behest of the Israeli government. Israel works directly with the pro-Israel funding class, the pro-Israel Zionist funder sector. Israel works directly with them. Then the Israeli government tells those people who to fund. Those people then get the funding from the funders. The funders pay the acolytes of Israel, pay the influencers, not directly. The funders pay them through an organization, such as a nonprofit, as a third party. That's how it works. So they don't even get the money directly from the funder. The funder puts the money into an organization, which then pays the influencer. So the influencer may not even know how any of this stuff works. They may not even know how any of this stuff works. I know for a fact because we were getting funded by some Zionist billionaire, and they were funding us through an organization that they created. I know how this works. I've seen it in real time. I've literally seen it in real time. We were getting paid through an organization. Now, I didn't know this in the beginning, but then after I realized that they were trying to pressure us and control us through money, I began to look into how this stuff works. But these people would call us, this billionaire couple would call us, or they could have been multimillionaires, but I'm pretty certain they were billionaires. But this very wealthy pro-Israel couple would call us and they would say, hey, we like your work and blah, 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 this and that and this and that. And they would donate money to us, but they would donate money to us through an organization that they created. You see, that's how it works. And so the influencer gets the cash, and the cash comes in from an organization such as a nonprofit. And so the receiver of the funds may not even know how any of this stuff works. They may not even know they're getting money from Israel. It's possible that they don't even know. But I'm just telling you how it works. So Emily Austin and her ilk will come out and say, we don't get a dime from Israel. Nothing. But you do. You may not know it, but you do, because Israel doesn't fund people directly. Israel funds people through third parties. That's how it works. Just a little FYI. Charlie Kirk, exactly. That's exactly how Charlie Kirk got funded. Charlie Kirk wasn't getting funded directly from Israel. He was getting money from Shillman. He was getting money from Ackman. He was getting money from all these different various funders who were all funding him at the behest of Israel. That's why Netanyahu contacted Charlie Kirk and said, hey, we can give you this much money. It was like over $100 million, et cetera, et cetera. And Charlie Kirk said, no, because you guys are trying to control me through money. And that's how they control people. They control people by giving them an ungodly amount of money. That's how it works. So it says here, the documents show that since 2018, the company has received at least $100 million to promote Israeli tourism campaigns in the United States. So Havas, the marketing company, Havas, gets the money from Israel. And Havas then pays people to advertise for the state of Israel. So it says here, the largest of the new Hasbro contracts was signed in August with a firm called Clocktower X, owned by Brad Parscale, who played a lead role in Trump's digital campaigns in 2016 and 2020. The $6 million 4-month contract signed between his firm and Havas Media on behalf of the Israeli government calls for strategic consulting, planning, and communication services to develop and execute a broad U.S. campaign to combat anti-Semitism. According to the filings, Parscale's company will produce at least 100 core pieces of content per month, including videos, audio, podcasts, and graphics and text. So when you see, you're already seeing a wave of pro-Israel stuff on X. And that wave, or this current wave of Hasbro material that we have been seeing inundating X, really sparked not too long Netanyahu had his meeting here in the United States. Netanyahu came here, I want to say, in August of this year, and he gave a little speech to a bunch of propagandists for Israel, Emily Austin, etc. And he said, we have to fight the propaganda war. Israel is losing the propaganda war. We have to fight. We have to fight. Not too long after that meeting happened, boom, you began to see a wave of pro-Israel content on X, where before that point, X was being dominated by anti-Israel material. Then we began to see, after Netanyahu's propaganda war speech here in the United States, we began to see this wave of pro-Israel content. Why? Because Israel went into third gear in the propaganda war and began to seriously pay people through third parties to inundate the online spaces like X, like TikTok, with pro-Israel material. So expect a second wave or a following wave of Hasbro to come up. And when you see it, understand where it's coming from. It's coming from this Israeli-backed, Israeli-financed media campaign. So it says here that they want to produce videos, audio, podcasts, graphics, and text, and 5,000 derivative versions monthly, aiming for 50 million impressions a month. That's a lot. 80% of the content will target young Americans on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Campaign messages will be distributed via Salem Media Network, a conservative Christian media group that owns more than 200 radio stations. It's not going to work. It's all going to fail. Literally, it's all going to fail. No matter what Israel does. I don't give a shit what Israel does. It's all going to fail. I did a video about this not too long ago saying that Israel is never going to recover from the world hating it. It is going to fail. Because people read articles like this. They're going to watch videos like the one I'm doing right now. And they're going to say, oh, okay, I know where it's coming from. And when they see all the pro-Israel stuff being inundated on their feed, they're going to say, oh, I know exactly where this is coming from. I know exactly where this is spawning from. This is coming from Israeli money. Because from the get-go, when this media campaign was sparked by the Israeli government some months ago, it felt very unorganic. It did not feel natural. It felt very artificial. It felt very fake, and it felt very forced. It felt as if they were saying, hey, you have to listen to us. And pro-Israel Hasbro material is extremely lazy. It is not organic, and it's very inauthentic and very lazy. The way it works is they find a woman with big tits, and they have her talk in front of a camera. A generally speaking attractive woman. or being a woman of average looks is sort of a cheat code. All you got to do is get in front of a camera. You don't have to have personality. Just get in front of a camera, and men are going to watch you. As a man, I understand that I don't have those cheat codes. As a man, you have to form a personality. You have to sort of cultivate a personality to get people to listen to what you have to say. With a woman, all you have to do is be somewhat good looking and have a mouth, a camera, and a microphone. And you will have more or less a decent amount of views. This is especially the case when it comes to video games. If you're a good-looking woman who likes video games, automatically you're going to get a lot of views. But this is not so much the case when it comes to being pro-Israel. Because people, for the most part, see right through it. And for the first time in a very long time, men are watching content, political content, not with their third eye, but with their brains. And all of a sudden, you're on X, and all out of nowhere, your feed is being inundated with a bunch of videos of women talking in front of a camera, talking in front of their iPhones, saying things like, we have to support Israel, guys. Israel is fighting for Western civilization. Gay rights. Gays. Think of the gays, guys. We have to think of the gays. Oh my God. Civilization. Women's rights. And what these people may not understand is that men in American society, especially young men, generally speaking, don't give a shit about any of those issues. In fact, the idea that women shouldn't vote anymore is growing in popularity by leaps and bounds. Now, I remember back in 2015 or so, I wrote an article about why giving women the right to vote was a terrible idea. Almost everybody hated me. Almost everyone disagreed with me. Conservatives! I'm talking about conservative people. Conservatives, for the most part, went against me, disagreed with me. Fast forward almost 10 years later, all of a sudden, the idea that women should not be allowed to vote is popular again. So when you go to young men in America and you say, women's rights, they don't care. Because in their minds, they're thinking, man, giving women the right to vote kind of led us into all these problems that we have. So none of that stuff is appealing to people. Especially young men. A lot of them don't give a shit. They're just about what? MAGA, America first, Christ is king. Are you Christ is king first, or are you pro-Israel? Are you America first, or are you Israel first? Which one are you? That's pretty much where the dialogue is at for a lot of these guys. So this stuff ain't working. It's not working. So they're going to see their feed. They're going to see some big-titted Zionist. We have to support Israel, guys. Support Israel. And these men are just saying, get thee behind me, witch. Thine sorceries are not working here no more. And that's what's happening. You see? It's not going to work. None of this stuff is going to work. It's going to fail. By the way, people see the truth. They have seen how for decades politicians have been controlled by Israel and Israel's conduit, financial conduits. And they've seen the genocide, they've seen the destruction, they've seen the evils of Israel. And so they also have opened their eyes spiritually. They see, wait a second, this whole Christian Zionism stuff is unbiblical. Paul said that being a Jew is truly spiritual and not external and not genetic. St. Paul says that not everyone who descends from Israel is actually of Israel, meaning that Israel is spiritual. Our focus on Israel must be spiritual, not physical, and we should be focusing on spiritual Israel and not genetic Israel. Unlike what the evangelical pastors like Jack Hibbs argue. Jack Hibbs says that, no, the genetics matter. He himself says that the genetics of the Jewish people are important, and we should fixate on the genetics. So for the evangelicals, it's really salvation by race. Whereas in real Christianity, it's salvation by grace, not race. We're saved by grace, not by race. And you see a lot of young men wearing cross necklaces. They're wearing necklaces with Christian crosses on them. And they're lifting weights, and they're telling everyone Christ is king. And then they see someone like, what's his name? Andrew Kleinman, or whatever his name is, coming out saying, well, saying Christ is king is anti-Semitic. Do you know how absolutely oblivious, foolish, and stupid you have to be to tell young men who are excited about their Christian faith that to say Christ is king is anti-Semitic? How fucking stupid do you have to be to say that? Do you not know how to read the room? Really? Andrew Kleinman, or whatever the hell your name is? Ben Shapiro? Ben Shapiro? And all the rest of their ilk? They came, all these young men said Christ is king, right? They're excited about their faith. Leave them alone. Candace Owens came out, Christ is king. And Andrew Kleinman and Ben Shapiro and the rest of them came out, the rest of the shills from the Daily Wire came out and they said, that's anti-Semitic, you shouldn't be saying that. That's anti-Semitic. I mean, beside the fact that you're an asshole for saying that, just from a PR standpoint, you're not very bright. I mean, you guys are supposed to be bright when it comes to marketing. Isn't that what they say? You guys are supposed to be very smart when it comes to marketing and PR. From a PR standpoint, that was a very dumb move. Very foolish move. Because now, what did you do? You brought attention to the Christ is King slogan. And what are the headlines saying? What were people saying on social media? What were people saying on YouTube? Oh, look, the pro-Israel Zionists are telling us that we should stop saying Christ is king. Guess what we're going to be doing now? Saying Christ is king. Guess what you did? You just made the statement Christ is king punk. You made it punk. You made it edgy. You made it rebellious. And that which is rebellious is cool to young people. So, I mean, actually, I should be thanking the Zionists. I should be thanking Ben Shapiro and Andrew Kleinman for making that slogan cool. We should be thanking them. If anything, we should be desiring the Hasbras to attack Christianity. We should want those people to attack Christianity because it's only going to make our side stronger. But they did that, and they did a disservice to their cause. And they made it quite obvious that their side is anti-Christian. Because for years, Shapiro and Andrew Kleinman and all these guys were saying, oh, no, we love Christianity. In fact, Andrew Kleinman claims that he has converted to Christianity. And Ben Shapiro has claimed, oh, no, he loves Christians. Christians are his allies. But then he goes against the statement, Christ is king. He goes against Jesus. So now people see that. And you cannot reverse what they have seen. They cannot unsee what they have seen. You see? So it says here, the focus on Christian audiences would have been surprising before the war in Gaza, since they, and particularly evangelicals, have historically been considered the most pro-Israel group in the U.S. So it's very interesting. I want to focus on this part of the sentence here. The focus on Christian audiences would have been surprising before the war in Gaza. Why would it have been surprising? Why would it have been surprising? Because the Israeli government did not need to focus so much on Hasbra before the Gaza war. Why are they focusing so much on it now? Because they are desperate. That's why. But Pew surveys conducted between 2022 and 2025 show a rapid decline in support for Israel amid the war in Gaza, even among conservatives. Some 42% of Americans held a negative view of Israel in 2022. 3 years later, that number jumped to 53%. The collapse in support is not limited to Democrats. Half of young Republicans under age 50, I'm going to read this to you guys again. Half of young Republicans under the age of 50 now hold a negative view of Israel, up 15% since the war began. Israel's getting desperate. A 2024 report by the Center for the Study of the United States at Tel Aviv University points to a similar trend among young evangelicals who are more critical of Israel and no longer support it automatically, unlike their parents. So, like I said, being anti-Israel is punk. It's rebellious. They're going against their parents. You guys better be supporting Israel and stop saying Christ is king. That's anti-Semitic. And guess what they're going to do as a response? They're going to Christ is king until the cows come home. To make matters worse, following the killing of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, conspiracy theories spread through far-right media and among online disinformation networks, alleging Israel had assassinated him over his criticism of the Gaza war. And that is true. That is very true. The failure of Israel's public diplomacy apparatus, which has long enjoyed both direct and indirect government support and remains popular domestically, with celebrities frequently volunteering for such projects, is alarming. It will be the focus of a state comptroller report to be published later this year, part of a series of reports, etc., etc. Another Israeli campaign commissioned for the Foreign Ministry was proposed by Show Faith by Works, owned by Republican consultant Chat Schneitger, an evangelical operative connected to the Christian right. The campaign's budget exceeds $3 million, 1/10 of which has already been paid via Havas. There's that third party again. Though a final contract has yet to be signed, filings submitted in September describe a focus on churches and Christian organizations in the Western United States. Now, guys, what did I say recently about Pastor Mark Discroll? Pastor Mark Discroll did a video not too long ago on why Christians should support Israel. Now, is this video part of Israel's information war? Maybe. I don't know what type of connections Mark Discroll has. But the video that he did it 4 months ago. We already know more or less what this guy is going to say. Like, oh, yes, it's in the Bible. Israel's in the Bible, blah, blah, blah. All right. But let's look at the comments. Here are the comments. Don't let support of a state and its policies supersede your allegiance to Christ and his kingdom. Let's see here. Galatians 3:29. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So far we have 2 comments that are against what this guy is saying. Galatians 3, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female. You are all one in Christ Jesus. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. It blows my mind that the average American Christian supports Jewish people in Israel, who in large part despise Christians. So far it's just negative. Supporting Israel and the Jews is one thing, but supporting the government and their actions is another. Again, another negative comment. I love when people have differing opinions from me in scriptures because it challenges me to do more studying and to make sure, I don't know what this is like a neutral comment, I guess. Sincere question, when can you actually be critical of the Israeli government? Again, this is critical of the video. Kind of lost me on this argument. Negative. Jesus to Israel, you will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Against the video. I do not support any group or organization that actively works against the truth that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. Against the video. So it's just negative comment after negative comment. So listen, Israel can pour in $1 trillion into funding pastors like Discroll to promote Israel and to promote Zionism. It's not going to work because let me tell you guys something. When you are raised in Christian Zionism, and then you realize that it's wrong and it's based on misinterpretations of the Bible, you cannot unsee it. It's like someone converting to Catholicism and then going back to evangelicalism. So let's say you were raised to be an evangelical. And then one day you think, wait a second, Christianity's been here for thousands of years. Let's look at the history of Christianity. I'm very interested in the history of my faith. This is the path that I took when I was in high school. And so you start reading church history. You go back to ancient times, 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century. Eventually you go into the Middle Ages. You start reading about the Middle Ages. And then you realize, wait a second, it's all Catholic. They got the bishops and the monks and the monasteries and the fasting and the meditation and the asceticism and the Eucharist and confession. It's all there. It's ancient. How can you unsee that once you see it? Once you see the historical reality of what Christianity is, how can you unsee it? It's like the old saying goes, to read history is to cease to be Protestant. It's very true. So then you convert to Catholicism. The only step that you would take as far as converting goes is you might become Eastern Orthodox afterwards because you realize the Vatican is a little bit too gay for you. So you realize it's just gay, right? There's a lot of pro-Sodom stuff in the Vatican. So then you become Eastern Orthodox. But you're not going to go back to being a Starbucks, Chick-fil-A evangelical. You're just not going to do that. It's not, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. It's the same thing with Zionism. All these young people are realizing, wait a second, mom and dad were wrong. So they're not going to just wake up and say, silly me, I was wrong this whole time. I'm going to go to the Wailing Wall now. That's not going to happen. So once you read St. Paul saying, hey, Abraham had one seed and that is Christ, and all those who follow Christ are of Abraham's seed, and not all those who descend from Israel are actually Israel. And to be a Jew is actually spiritual and not genetic. How can you unsee all that? You can't. It's just, Israel's not going to reverse this. They can pay all the money they want to the pastors. They're not going to reverse this. So it says here, according to the documents, these goals will be pursued through biblically based arguments. So they're going to try to use Christian Zionism. Even though they themselves reject Christ, they want to use Christian Zionism to get people to support Israel. It goes back to what I've been saying, and it goes back to what other people have said. Christian Zionism is connected to government. It's connected to the Israeli government. It's connected to people in the U.S. government, etc. According to the documents, these goals will be pursued through biblically based arguments highlighting the importance of Israel and the Jewish people to Christians, while spreading messages that the Palestinians chose Hamas. They murder Christian aid workers. Yeah, you can tell people that Palestinians have murdered Christians all you want. People are still going to say, wait a second, what about the fact that they spit on Christians? What about the fact that they attacked a Christian village in the West Bank, the village of Taiba? What about the fact that Israel bombed churches in Gaza, has attacked churches in other parts, like in the West Bank or in Lebanon? What about that? It's not going to work. They celebrated the October 7th massacre, etc., etc. The filings for the proposed campaign explain that the messages will reach their audience through the largest geofencing campaign in U.S. history, a pitch to map the physical parameters of every major church and Christian college in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado. Why those states? The screen wasn't good, sorry. So the Israelis want to focus on Christian churches and colleges, specifically in these states: California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado. Why these states? Ask yourself that question. It's a good question. I think I know why. They are targeting these states, because it's in these states where you have heavy concentrations of Christian Zionism. Heavy. Take it from someone who was born and raised in California, and from someone who's been to all of these states. So, being originally a Californian, I can tell you right now that Christian Zionism is strong in California. Now, it's probably less now, but it's probably still substantial in California. For example, and maybe I can bring my dad in here to talk more about this, but for example, California, specifically in the area of Chino Hills, has Pastor Jack Hibbs. Pastor Jack Hibbs is a hardcore Zionist who thinks that the genocide against the Palestinians is A-OK, biblical, kosher, and 100% Christian. Jack Hibbs says, oh, the Palestinians? Nobody wants them. Nobody wants them. Nobody wants them. Gaza's pathetic. Israel is absolutely right to do what it's doing. So Jack Hibbs is a apologist for Israel's murderous policies in Gaza. He's a pastor. He's a pastor of a mega church in Southern California, Chino Hills area in California. California is a heavy, heavy hotbed for Christian Zionism. The church that I went to in Northern California did not have a Zionistic pastor. He was a Calvinist minister who wasn't really interested in Zionism. But a lot of the people who went to that church were Zionists. A lot of the people who went to that church were very pro-Israel. So California is a hub. California is the Mecca. It is the harlot of Babylon for Christian evangelicalism and Zionism. TBN is in California. A lot of the weird American Christianity that we see came from California. It came from California. Arizona is also a hotbed for Christian Zionism. I've been to Arizona one time, and when I was in Arizona, I went to a studio called, what's it called? It's the studio that's ran by Jonathan Bernis. So Jonathan Bernis is a hardcore Christian Zionist. I forgot the name of his studio. I'm going to look it up real quick. But it's in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been to the studio. In fact, I'm pretty certain you can still find the video of me talking in Jonathan Bernis' studio in California. Jewish Voice Ministries is the name of the studio. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been to the studio. I went there in 2000 and I want to say 9 or 2010. And the fact that that studio is in Arizona bespeaks that there is a concentration of pro-Israel people in Arizona. So Arizona is another hotbed. There is a pro-Palestine activist. He calls himself Resistance is Beautiful. You can watch his videos on Instagram and I think also on YouTube, I'm not sure. But he lives in Arizona and he does pro-Palestine events in Arizona. And many times he gets people coming to him, acting very aggressive towards him, yelling at him, threatening him, acting very viciously towards him. Why? Because in that state, there's a lot of pro-Christian people. If you go to, let's say, the other states mentioned in this article, the other states that Israel is targeting specifically. So Israel is very strategic. They know exactly which states to go to. They're not going to every single state. They're not targeting every single state because not every single state is the same, and not every single state is going to have the same amount of pro-Israel people. There are specific states in America that have more concentrations of Christian Zionism than others. Nevada has also a lot of Zionists, although I haven't seen a whole lot of it myself, but I know from my father's experience that it does have a lot of those types of people. Colorado, I know this from firsthand experience. Colorado has very high concentrations of pro-Israel sentiment. A lot of Messianics, a lot of Judaizers are in Colorado. If you go to Colorado Springs, Denver, tons of Messianic churches, tons of pro-Israel evangelical churches in Colorado. Colorado, I would say, out of all the states, I would say Colorado has the highest number, or at least the highest rate, of just American churchianity lunacy. If you want to see a state that has, like, if you are into the type of American Christianity where people are charismatic and they worship Israel and they go on hikes and they do Christian yoga and they're just into this sort of fruits and nuts, trail mix Christianity, Starbucks Christianity, Colorado is your state. You would love Colorado. The International House of Prayer is in Colorado. They have places, and believe it or not, the evangelicals in Colorado have created their own form of monasticism. I did not know that this existed until 2011, 2012. They have, I didn't see this, well, actually I did see this myself. I saw this when I was in Colorado. They have these prayer houses in Colorado, and they have multiple locations in the state where people go into these little buildings and they just go there to pray. They're prayer houses. And they're literally the evangelical equivalent to a monastery. So they always say, oh, monasteries, that's unbiblical. Oh, it's antichrist, Catholic, popery, idolatry. The evangelicals literally made their own version of monasticism. And you can see it in Colorado. And like how in a monastery, they always have people praying, at these prayer houses, they always have to have at least one person praying. And that person will stay for hours praying, and they will have shifts. So they'll say, my shift is from this time to this time. I leave at this time, and then this person's going to come in and start their shift and replace me. It's like how monasteries function. I never saw that until I went to Colorado. So Colorado is the motherland. It's like the hub of weird American Christian lunacy. And so that's why they're targeting Colorado. That's why they're targeting California. That's why they're targeting Arizona. They know the religious demographics of these states. You could go to New York. You're probably not going to have as much luck. You could go to, I think Texas, you would have still a lot of luck in Texas. But you could go to New Jersey, New York. You could go to, I'm trying to think of other states. Maybe Oregon, Washington. You may not have the same level of success as you would in these particular states. So it says here that they want to target churches and Christian colleges in these states during worship hours, identifying attendees using commercial data. You hear this? So they're tracking your data. They know what you're searching. They know what you're interested in. They're going to target you. Tracking them and continuing to target them with relevant ads. The estimated audience for the suggested project, 8 million churchgoers and 4 million Christian students. And here's the thing. The more they target, do a little stretch here. The more they target us, the more people are going to despise them. They're going to see the ads and they're going to say, well, this is annoying. Ads don't work, by the way. How many times have you seen an ad? Like, you want to see a YouTube video. You want to listen to a song. All of a sudden, you see an ad about car insurance. Do you say, you know what? I'm going to get myself some car insurance. I'm going to call this number. When has that ever happened? Answer, never. That's never happened. Ads don't work. It's like when Romney was running and the Mormon church said, you know, Romney's running. Now's our chance to get some new members in the church. And they spammed YouTube with these annoying I'm a Mormon ads. I'm a Mormon. I'm a police officer. I'm a Mormon. I'm a teacher. I'm a Mormon. I'm a professor. I'm a Mormon. And I'm a Mormon. I'm African American. And I'm a Mormon. People just saw those ads and they said, well, this is annoying. This shit don't work. So John Voight, yeah, I could totally see John Voight playing this game. Tim Tebow, 100%. I could see Tim Tebow doing this sort of thing. NBA star Stephen Curry. I'm not sure about that one. Although Mayweather has been glazing Israel for a while now. So it says here, a government tender exemption revealed that the state spent over $45 million in the second half of 2025 on regular online advertising with Google, YouTube, Twitter, and Outbrain. Has it worked? Has it worked? Nope. Candace Owens is still getting, on average, 2 million views for a live stream. And Steve Crowder still ain't getting those numbers. You friggin' Charlie Kirk's YouTube channel ain't getting anywhere near those numbers. It ain't working. Okay. And why do they keep inviting Erica Kirk to these events? Stop. Fox News did this cringe-ass event. The Fox Patriots Awards Ceremony. Do you know award ceremonies are bullshit? Do you know what award ceremonies are bullshit? They're meaningless. Did Passion of the Christ get any awards? Did Passion of the Christ get any Oscars? I want to know right now. I want to fact check this. I'm going to check this out. Passion of the Christ. Did it get any Oscars? Oh, it got some Oscars. Original score, cinematography. Oh, wow. It did get some Oscars. All right, but for the most part, Oscars, okay, award ceremonies, maybe not the Oscars. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe the Oscars are bullshit now. Maybe they weren't bullshit back in the day. But award ceremonies, for the most part, are cringe. It's a bunch of people getting together and then giving each other awards. How cringe is that? So they're like, we're going to create the Fox Awards Patriot Awards Ceremony. We're going to invite Erica Kirk and give her an award. And we're going to call her name. And she's going to get on the stage. And we're going to have this fireworks shooting up from these machines like they're in a freaking monster truck rally, WrestleMania rally. Like, her husband almost got decapitated on television. Here's some monster truck WrestleMania effects. She gets on the stage. And then before that, they invite her on the Jesse Waters show. Who keeps inviting her? Seriously, just stop. Every video you see of her, she's dabbing her cheek. I don't see any tears. People don't trust her. She's not beating the allegations. Who keeps inviting this woman? People are not even watching the YouTube channel. That channel that channel has over 5 million subscribers. It gets 10,000 views for a video. 20,000 views for a video. Now, that for me, that's pretty damn good. I'm happy when I get 2,000 views for a video. But you got 5 million subs, over 5 million subs, and you're getting 9,000 views for a video. Like, that's disastrous. So how come it's not working, Israel? It's not working because you guys messed up. Instead of just doing a precision operation where you could surgically remove and eliminate the Hamas operatives who were behind the October the 7th attack, you guys decided to go full out genocide mode. And you guys decided that you were going to become Levi and Simeon from the book of Genesis. Killing everyone in a town. And then saying that you're the good guys. That don't work. It just doesn't work. And then people realize, oh my God, you guys spit on Christians and you guys don't like Christ. So you're not hiding it from us anymore. Another influence campaign was signed with Bridges Partners, a Washington-based consulting firm owned by Yair Levi and Yuri Steinberg, the former Israeli tourism attaché in North America. The $1 million contract signed via Havas on behalf of the Foreign Ministry and LAPM funds social media influencers promoting Israel. Hello? All these influencers you see on X, a lot of them are on the payroll. So when you see this big wave of pro-Israel content, just remember who's backing it. Just remember who's spawning it. It's not organic. It's totally astroturfed, as they say. It includes recruiting and managing 14 to 18 influencers, each posting 25 to 30 times per month on Instaho, YouTube, and TikTok and X. In July, Haaretz reported that the foreign ministry granted hundreds of thousands of shekels under tender exemption to a nonprofit tasked with bringing American right-wing influencers to Israel. The same demographic showing the steepest decline in pro-Israel sentiment. Interesting. Noticing a lot of people visiting Israel lately. In August, they arrived and toured, including visits to settlements. Ooh, Tommy Robinson. I wonder, Mr. Robinson. Remember who funded Tommy Robinson? Go look it up. Bob Shillman. That's his name. You can't make this stuff up. That's his name. In August, they arrived and toured, including visits to settlements and what the ministry described as a visit of media, diplomatic, and public diplomacy values. During his September visit to New York, Prime Minister Netanyahu met with American influencers and urged them to think of social media as a battlefield. And it is. It is a battlefield. If you lose the information war, you lose a lot. You got to get the support of the Christians. If you don't, you lose the support of America. That's the bottom line. Project Esther is presented as a national strategy for combating anti-Semitism and protecting Jewish communities. But critics, including Jewish and progressive groups, said its real goal was to criminalize pro-Palestine activism. Very true. They want to make it illegal to criticize Israel, by the way. If they could, they'd put me in prison. If they could, they would fulfill exactly what Jesus warned about. They will take you to the synagogues. They will put you in prison. They'll kill you. They want to make it illegal. But because if they tried to do that, they'd have hell to pay. Because if Israel said, hey, America, I want you to put people in prison for criticizing us, the anti-Israel stuff would grow like an ocean. It'd be like Noah's flood. It'd be a deluge against Israel. But if they could get away with it, they would put me in prison. They'd put anyone who criticizes Israel in prison. It proposed restricting students' visas and cutting federal funding to universities, hosting such... And this is such horseshit, by the way. Bullshit. You're telling me that So, let's say some Israeli guy comes here, and he's going to university here in America, and he says, I want to wipe out all Gazans. Should he be deported back to Israel? Yes or no? Yes or no? If you want to deport people for criticizing Israel, because it's anti-Semitic, as you say, then we should also deport any Israeli who comes to this country and says, I want to wipe out Gaza. We should deport them. I'm putting a massage ball on my back. It proposed restricting student visas and cutting federal funding to universities. Hosting such activities, steps that were implemented immediately after Trump's return to the White House. And it's terrible, really, what happened. It absolutely is terrible. You know, just deporting people or wanting to deport people, arresting people for criticizing Israel and all this stuff. It's just crazy to me. I think it's insane. A Haaretz investigation earlier this year also revealed a state... Again, this is hilarious. So, a Haaretz investigation earlier this year also revealed a state-backed effort to develop an AI-based Hasbara bot. They got a robot that just churns out pro-Israel stuff. Like a machine, making you think it's actually organic. You see, because but you see, here's the thing. The Hasbara bot ended up becoming anti-Israel. Even their own AI bot became anti-Israel. They can't even get their robots to be pro-Israel. They can't even program the robots to be pro-Israel. The robots become anti-Israel. You see? They lost Charlie Kirk. They lost me. They lost my father, who was a huge defender of Israel, and they lost the robot. So a lot of these pro-Israel profiles on Twitter, they're just fake. They're not even real people. They're not even real. They're fake. They're churning out these bots to make you think that pro-Israel sentiment is so overwhelming. You see, this is how this stuff works. Let me explain to you something about Israeli culture. Israelis love this idea that white people love them. If you want to piss off an Israeli, tell him that the country that has the most pro-Israel people on the world, on the earth, is India. You'll piss him off. You know, the biggest number of your supporters are found in which country? Not in America, Not in any European country. No, no, no. They're in India. That pisses them off. Because they want to be loved by white people. Because a lot of Israelis... Excuse me. A lot of Israelis want people to see them as white. So they want to be loved by white people. And what they hate is this idea that white people are becoming more and more critical of Israel, which is a fact. So they want to give this impression, you see, the Westerners love us. And the reason why, for years, you've seen all this inundation of anti-Israel profiles on Twitter is because, well, the real people of America have not spoken yet. And the real people of Germany and the real British people have not spoken yet. And so they flooded Twitter with X. And this flood of pro-Israel bots are there to make you think that the real people have spoken. You see, the real Westerners have spoken, and they're pro-Israel. You're wrong. They love us. And then you realize, wait a second. Israel has literally poured in tens of millions of dollars into X, into YouTube, to get the algorithms to push pro-Israel propaganda. Hasbro. Why would they have to do that if the great majority of Westerners are pro-Israel? If the great majority of Westerners are pro-Israel, you wouldn't have to buy bots. You wouldn't have to churn out bots. You wouldn't have to pour in so much money into these platforms, but you are. If the great majority of Westerners were pro-Israel, all you would have to do is just sit back and relax, because the people would do the work for you, but they're not. Because you're losing Israel. That's the reason why.